Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. Merry Christmas, everyone out there that is watching this and celebrating Christmas. Happy holidays to everybody else. Man, I was really hoping they wouldn't post this ban list on Christmas because, to be honest, I didn't want to work today, but that's okay. Ban list content, we got to do it, got to talk about it. I'm honestly not all that thrilled with this stuff. I did read it. Sometimes I do like the live reaction on the video, but it kind of just got like thrown in my face. So I did see the contents of this. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen it as well, but I'm not really in love with it. We'll talk about why as we get into the video. If you guys are new here, definitely subscribe. It's Christmas, so if you're feeling extra giving, maybe go down in the description below, check out the Patreon, go to TCG Player, use my link to buy cards. If you need sleeves, deck boxes, binders, go down there, use Dex Protection. Lots of links down there that will help out. I really do appreciate it. Again, hope you guys all are enjoying your holiday. Take 10 minutes to watch this video, and we'll talk about it. Drop a comment down below what you think about this ban list. But with that being said, let's get started. We always got to read their notes because they pretty much they do explain their reasoning pretty well. Whether or not we agree with that reasoning is a whole other thing. So let's get started. Announcement: UW03 changes to the banned limited errata card list. Greetings, Dragon Ball Super card fans. With the release of UW03, basically set 12, we're adding one card each to the ban, limited, and errata card list respectively. In addition, we've also made the decision to introduce a new best of one ban list and are adding one card to it. Big spoilers right there, if you can pretty much guess what that is. The best of one ban list is a new ban list that only applies to games played in single round best of one matches. While we primarily balance cards with a best of three match structure in mind, single round matches have grown increasingly prominent online. The best of one ban list was introduced to ensure this format remains fun and competitive, and we will continue to announce changes and additions to it alongside the ban limited errata list going forward. Okay, so this best of one ban list, it makes sense to me and it doesn't make sense to me, right? So obviously we're playing a lot of these online tournaments. There are still some IRL tournaments. Big shout out to PPG. They're one of the biggest proponents of the IRL tournaments we still have. But the biggest tournaments right now have been the online ones. Those ones are reaching like 100 plus, 120 plus players. They're usually best of one. And the biggest complaint by a lot of players is, these aggro decks, namely Vegex, Red Broly, and Reboot Gohan, they're way too powerful because, we don't have multiple games to try and counter them. Like, if we go second against them, it's a big disadvantage, and we don't have the opportunity to side deck some of the cards we may have side decked against those matchups, in the first place. So, while that is like a fair criticism, I sometimes find it hard for certain decks to like actually come up with a good excuse, like, oh, I would have brought this card in against Reboot Gohan. Like, it's leader-based aggression that it's really hard to side deck against Reboot Gohan, to be honest, depending on what colors you're in. But regardless, I think this best of one ban list thing is pretty confusing. But I guess we should just talk about that when we get to the card. It's obviously Reboot Gohan, but we'll go down the list here. We'll talk about it in order. So banned cards: No Escape Son Goku. Reasoning: we designed this card to address concerns over Legendary Flute, which is a really old card if you guys are newer to the game, and other cards that allow players to skip energy costs and reuse their battle cards. Those cards no longer pose much of a threat, but No Escape Son Goku currently places a burden on future design space. As such, we made the decision to ban it. This makes perfect sense. This card automatically shuts down the new Janemba deck coming out in set 12, as well as the Pycon deck. It might shut down Pycon a little bit less hard than it does Janemba, but it does pretty much tell Janemba you can't really play the game the way the deck's intended to play, at least. So this card's pretty much fine. There's like a really weird thing when it comes to silver bullets. Like, people want their silver bullets to stop like really degenerate styles of play. But then you have cards like this. You have cards like Cronoa that pretty much put a lasting effect on the game state. And of course, people aren't a big fan of that. And I pretty much fall in that same category. Like, this might be an unpopular opinion, but I'm actually a pretty big fan of Dark Power Black Mass Sand, at least the way it's designed. Like, yes, it's a very annoying card to go up against, especially if your deck, will trigger it a lot over the course of the game. Like, if you're a deck that spams battle cards via non-keyword skills, and Black Mass Sand is like a hurdle for you, yeah, it's super annoying. But the card doesn't have barrier. It doesn't leave a lasting effect on the game. Like, it's not like you play it for one, and then for the rest of the game, if you play a battle card with a non-keyword skill, 15k or less, you pitch 2. It's as long as BMS is in the battle area, right? And again, doesn't have barrier. So that's like a comparison to like these new Draft Box 6 silver bullets that basically punish blue for using counterattacks like Dimension Magic and counterplays like untap energy. It's like in that same vein, where that also doesn't necessarily put a lasting effect on the game just by playing it, but it has barrier. So it has like really annoying protection. This type of card, like No Escape Son Goku and Cronoa, this is like the next step up where it puts a lasting effect on the game. You can't do anything to stop it. You can't do anything to reverse it. So cards like this probably shouldn't exist. Yeah, they stopped broken strategies. Like this did stop Flute back in the day, although this came out after Flute was already banned. So it was like really just way too late and unnecessary. But yeah, cards like this that put lasting effects on the game should not be created. I really don't think that those Draft Box 6 Silver Bullets should have barrier either. Those should have just been the same idea as BMS, as in you could put them out there, they replace themselves, that's great. Not even BMS replaces itself unless you swing with it to take a life, but then you're putting it, you know, in a vulnerable position to be attacked. So yeah, those should not have had barrier. Replacing themselves was fine. Let the opponent have the ability to remove them. And then BMS, in my opinion, pretty well designed, considering you can still play your guys. Pitching 2 cards is not always the most costly, but you know, more often than not, you won't play into the BMS, right? But you can remove it relatively easily. So that's just my little spiel on that. This is perfectly fine, and other Silver Bullets as it stands right now are okay. Of course, they're not going to ban the Draft Box 6 Silver Bullets. They literally just came out. Limited cards. Trunks Elite Descendant. Reasoning: we're limiting this card for the following reasons. Combining this card with Vegeta Reluctant Reinforcements in Vegex decks allows players to fill their drop with cards while going on the offensive too easily. I agree with that. The speed at which Reluctant Reinforcements fills players' drop areas greatly limits future design space. Sure, that's fine. I talked about this in a video, I think last week or week before, basically my set 12 ban list wish list video. This was one of the 3 cards that could have got hit. It was this, it was Reluctant Reinforcements, or it was Splintering Mind Mass Sand, right? I don't like, this card was problematic. It made Vegex very, very powerful. I just get upset at this card being limited because the other fair mill decks, like Goku Xeno, like any of the old black leaders, this was a great card for them. Like they mill 3, which obviously sets us up perfectly. Playing Reluctant Reinforcements in those decks is far more fair because it's a one-time burst 5, as where every other turn your leader is only bursting 3, and then when you flip with most of those decks, you're not even bursting anymore, so you're not even getting good value out of like the time agents and Supreme Kais of Time and stuff like that, right? Now, when we look at Vegex, yeah, it accelerates Vegex's game plan way too much. You get the 15k attacker, brings out a 20k barrier to attack next turn, and then it gives you the Splintering Mind plays. But, I mean, that just kind of shows my point where Vegex as a leader makes this card more problematic than just the regular burst leaders would. I mean, who knows? Maybe this would still be pretty broken in like a Goku Xeno deck. I really don't think it would, because you would be getting so much less value out of your other mills over the course of the entire game, and that's where Vegex really gets its build up. Another card that I wish would have been banned would have been the Splintering Mind Mass Sand, and that's because, you know, this card could have theoretically been saved, and, you know, Trunks and Reluctant Reinforcements, it would be annoying. Your opponent would still have 20k barrier battle card, but you wouldn't be, you know, bringing out the Splintering Mind that could burn you for game and also rip your life to self-awaken you, right? Splintering Mind is still going to be a playable card because of this new extra card. I forget the name of it, but it's a new extra card coming out in set 12. It only works with a sand-only leader, so Vegex can't play it, which is definitely a good thing, but it's still going to be a 2-energy kind of stupid way for your opponent to get Splintering Mind out onto the board and burn you for damage, right? Pretty much, for the most part, uninteractable, because in an aggro deck where you can drop that thing as early as turn 2, turn 3, a lot of times your opponent's not going to have their defenses set up, not going to have their counterplay set up. Sometimes they will, but a lot of times they won't be able to interact with it. You're still gonna get that self-awaken, you're still gonna get that burn damage, so it is kind of dumb. It won't be nearly as dumb as this combo with Reluctant Reinforcements, so that is a fair point. I just don't like this is like a side effect hit when the real problem is probably the Vegex leader. They probably should have errated Vegex leader to the bursting 3. I think that would have been probably a more fair thing. Another good one I heard was like just saying like an errata to the Vegex leader where you can't play Overrealms. That would have been pretty interesting, because that would have saved this card. You wouldn't be able to go into your Splintering Mind, Reluctant Reinforcements, that kind of stuff. You also wouldn't be able to play Man on a Mission. That would have been a very, very interesting thing, because you would, you'd stick to your time agents. You have to stick back to your Vegex fusion cards, and you could play these Gohanks cards, which is another thing. Like, this is a big engine that Vegex is losing for sure. But the Gohank stuff is also pretty strong in Vegex as well. We have to keep in mind that set 12 is basically directly boosting Vegex as a deck. So that's another engine to look out for. To be fair, that engine does lose harder to Dark Power Black Mass Sand, which we were just talking about before. So there is a check to that. So we're going to have to wait and see how it plays out. It seems like Vegex is still going to be the strongest black leader because it still bursts the most. You get the most value out of a drop area centric deck compared to any other leader. But maybe with this hit, maybe Shroom and Salsa can compete better. Maybe Gogeta Xeno will have a better shot. It's just that Vedex is still going to do a lot of stuff for very cheap energy. One drop Haru Double Striker, free Man on a Mission, stuff like that. The free Time Agents, which again, you get the most value out of Time Agents compared to any other leader. That is still going to be a thing. I think Vedex will still be the best black leader, but again, we'll have to wait and see. So before we get into this errata thing, one thing to note here, Reboot Gohan was not hit in terms of the entire game. Again, spoiler, it was the leader banned for best of one. Feet Kamehameha would have been a card I would have liked to see hit. I think whether it's best of one or best of three, that card's stupid. If you're taking a big triple strike, you know, turn two, let's say they put a Cell Kamehameha and like a Feet, that's 30k combo. They picked a card out of your hand. Their leader is what, 55 triple strike at that point. You're forced to take it, especially if you're on one energy. There's just no way you're comboing out of it unless you're a very, very specific defensive deck. And you know, all that damage is getting crit. That's definitely not well balanced, well designed. Of course, you know, they didn't design Reboot Gohan with Feet in mind, but or vice versa. But still, that card, in my opinion, should have been banned. And there was no touch to Red Broly. Now, out of the three aggro decks, Vegex, Red Broly, Reboot Gohan, it makes the most sense to me that Red Broly doesn't receive a hit here, because I don't see a way to ban a card in Red Broly that doesn't absolutely kill the deck. Like, you can't ban Astonishing Potential because one, it's too expensive, people would lose their minds. Two, it's the linchpin of the deck. You just can't ban it. I heard arguments for limiting Ba. I don't think you can do that either, because the general consensus with one drops or one of searchable cards in Dragon Ball Super is actually to play two of them. Like, a lot of Red Broly lists play two Planet Vampa, specifically so you could search it out and not get screwed when one is stuck in your life, right? So if Ba was limited to one, you would automatically lose the game upon playing Astonishing Potential. If Ba's in your life, you auto lose, right? And then another one I heard was ban Planet Vampa. That was a more interesting one. You would definitely lose a lot of consistency because you wouldn't be able to see your Astonishing Potential turn one as often. But that would be a decent one because Vampa lets you do more stuff in the late game for 0 energy, which obviously adds to the deck's ability to aggro. So that was an interesting one. Erratas on the leader was another one that was thrown around that I thought would be a good idea. Like, again, you can't play Overwhelms, you can only have X amount of battle cards on the board, or removing the ability to save your chain when your chain is removed. Those would have been good hits that maybe would have brought the power level down just a little bit. They decided to do nothing here. I understand it. I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but it is what it is. I guess we can move on here. So, errata cards, Dark Broly, Overwhelming Evil. They basically errata this card to say when a marker is removed by a non-keyword skill, your opponent pitches a card. Okay, so this, they pretty much talk about, you know, future design space here. They're probably going to make a keyword skill that removes markers from a unison. That's cool, I guess. Kind of like a spoiler or some foreshadowing they're giving us. And then the best of one ban here. So I've talked about it, you know, sprinkled out throughout this video because I guess, you know, we're talking about the whole aggro trio here. We got to, like, you know, talk about it a little bit out of order. So they're banning this for best of one only tournaments. Now, I guess at your local, you know, it's going to be up to the store's discretion, but most players do abide by a given ban list. It is strange that, you know, this is only a best of one ban list as opposed to a best of three ban list. How bad is it going to feel, right? If you're going to locals and you're like, oh, I forgot, it's today best three, best of one. Because my locals used to do, you know, best three on Saturdays, best of one on Sundays. So it's like, oh man, what's today? Oh, I got my Reboot Gohan deck. I show up to locals, I can't play it. That feels pretty bad. I think Feet would have been a more appropriate hit here because even think about it, in best of one, if you weren't dealing with that crit damage, you'd be getting so many more cards to hand, so many more opportunities to deal with the Reboot Gohan aggro. So I think that would have been a pretty good compromise, but this is a weird one. I don't love it. I know Marcus is actually a big fan of it. We were talking about this before I, you know, started recording this video. He also wanted Feet to be hit, so that's a point he made as well, but he likes this. I don't love it. Does this just become completely irrelevant once, you know, COVID's over? If COVID ever ends, does this just become completely irrelevant? I kind of think so, because really, besides locals, every IRL event was best of three, so I guess this is just like a thing to ease the tides in a best of one environment, like we're kind of forced to play in now. So there's that. Another thing they didn't do anything to green in terms of Dormant Potential Unleashed. I do kind of wish they hit Roshi Kamehameha Origins. I guess they felt like it wasn't that big of a deal. And to be fair, I mean, green hasn't been doing anything overly crazy. It's just a very annoying loop that green players have access to, which I don't think is really necessary for them to have, but they do have it, I guess. It is kind of dumb that you can do that in Reboot Gohan, although a lot of Reboot Gohan lists don't play the Kamehameha Origins, they just play the Dormant in general, but I really don't think Reboot Gohan is a good enough reason to hit Dormant when in reality, I feel like personally, Feet was the right hit here. So there's just things on this list that I'm not in love with. You know, they missed some hits there. I think Vegeta is still gonna be very, very powerful, which I don't love. Reboot Gohan still gonna be annoying with Feet in best of 3 scenarios, but I guess probably not as dominant. But I don't know. I want to know in the comments what you think. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your holiday. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.